everything is equal. For example, if you want to communicate with a loved one in spirit, if you're in grief and they're up here, you can't connect. You've got to return to the equality. And this is how we receive messages from animals or plants or crystals or Arcturians, for example, is to feel the equality, because nothing is above or below. In the third dimension, we have an economic system that is constantly reinforcing up and down, separation, lack. But at the heart space, there is no lack, no separation.
So welcome back, everybody, onto the Biba Frequency podcast. Today, I've invited David Partick onto the podcast. And David Partick is a very intriguing character. I'm going to share a little bit about you, David, and then I'm going to let you just roll, okay? David Partick, what intrigues me most about you is your ability to communicate with animals. And you had an experience in 2004 in the tsunami, right? You were involved in that tsunami. You were there.
I did.
You survived that, and you had your kind of intuitive double kick into some other part of yourself, like an activation, and then the mediumship and the intuition and that kind of expanded state of awareness just began to grow and grow and grow and develop into how you work with people today, which is very intuitive. It's very insightful. It's kind of like mediumship on a very broader scale. Like the umbrella term for mediumship is just the ability to communicate with consciousness, whether that's the Arcturian council that you're connected to, whether that's animals, which I love animals, right? Whether that's past loved ones or the spirit world. And so I'd love for you to share. And I'd also like to just give a shout out to Trey on Your Superior Self, who interviewed you originally. And that's where I saw you there. And so your story's also there for people who are interested in hearing your other interview with Trey. So welcome on board the mothership, David.
Thank you for having me, Biba. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to let you roll, David. What's happening in your world today?
Well, I'll give you a quick update. Last week, I was on the island of Stromboli in Sicily. You may be aware of it. It's an active volcano, and the entire island is a volcano. You'll understand what I'm getting to in a minute here, but I was snorkeling off the beach of my hotel, and I encountered a mother octopus. Now, typically octopuses are moving when they're in the ocean. They're elusive, etc. But I saw this octopus in a typically just completely, sessile location. I dove down, as I'm an avid scuba diver, and this octopus turned white. It turned white, like it's a sign, go away, leave me alone. So I surfaced, and I communicated with the octopus. I connected through my heart space, and I said to her, I'm not here to harm you or eat you or hurt you. And I saw a vision of her guarding her eggs. She was actually in a cave, a little cave, guarding her eggs, and her arms were kind of wrapped around the entrance of this cave. And this happened last week. And I dove down again, and the octopus did not turn white. She welcomed me to come into her space, and I was eye to eye with her. I was eye to eye with this octopus. I could see her breathing, and I hung onto a rock, and we just kind of communicated for a couple of seconds before I had to surface again. I did this a few times, and then over the next 2 days, I was there. But what happened in that first encounter, as I came up, the rain had just stopped, and a massive rainbow came out on the sky. And as I just mentioned, Stromboli is an active volcano, and at that very moment, a volcano erupted. So there was an octopus, a rainbow, and a volcanic eruption happening simultaneously in this amazing synchronicity of nature. All of it was nature: the volcano, the octopus, and the rainbow. So that's what I just wanted to share. What happened last week on a little island. Nobody else was with me. I was by myself. I was telling people afterwards in Italian what happened, and they didn't quite believe me because they don't understand animal communication. But this mother octopus was so loving and reminding us to live our lives. They don't feed after they lay the eggs, these female octopus. They die once the eggs hatch. So the mother takes her position, fans her eggs until they hatch, and then she dies. And it was a reminder of the cycle of life, that just live your life to the fullest, enjoy your time. That mother octopus wasn't going to eat again, and she was just there guarding her eggs. I could feel her presence, and her focus and her loving attention to her eggs, her siphon was going, full blast down there. Only about 3 meters of water, about 10 feet. But just a wonderful encounter. And again, shared with no one but the octopus. There were no other humans around, and nobody else I met on the island were out there and saw her. Yeah. So, but yeah, getting back to my intuition, I have been intuitive since I was a child. I used to communicate with animals. We had a couple of pets growing up, and I used to have, conversations with them. It felt totally normal. Like a lot of us, we do shut that down as we get older. People don't typically understand why you're communicating with horses. I was at a horse stable once, and some friends made some jokes because they saw me talking to the horses. And I remember shutting that down even further. This isn't what's supposed to happen. Now I do work with horses and I hear all sorts of things. But yeah, it was around the time of the tsunami, that was 20 years ago. I heard a telepathic message to turn left. In the middle of this disaster, I was told to turn left and save my life. And I was able to help people who were terribly injured. But what was striking about those 4 days was that I never put my foot wrong. Spirit was flowing through me. I surrendered in a way that I'd never have before. And I never put a foot wrong. I was barefoot on an island covered in chemicals and broken glass and very dangerous, sharp objects. And I was rushing around, and I never got cut or injured in those 4 days. Everything I was doing was done correctly. I look back with relief that I can say I did everything I could. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, that if we do ever get ourselves in a tough situation, to surrender. That surrender is really denying the separation and allows us to sort of flow who we truly are. Now I work as an intuitive. As you mentioned earlier, it goes beyond mediumship. It's also animal communication. It's people with issues with health. I do medical intuition sometimes. Other times it's job issues, relationships. It's all helping them soften that knot of tension that they hold about something. There's a knot I can feel in their heart space that when they come for a session, they can leave feeling more calm and more clear, and also helping them open their own intuition. It's not just about giving information, but also helping them open their own. And I give tips and share ideas with how they specifically can open their intuition to trust what they're getting more often.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a lifelong journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting work. It's by far the most rewarding work I've done. Just the spirit. We're coming up on the holiday season right now, and last year I did a reading for a woman who had lost both her parents, and I kept seeing a Christmas tree with Christmas ornaments on it, very specific ornaments. And I relayed this to the person I was working with, and she said, you know, when my parents died, the Christmas ornaments was the only thing we didn't fight over, me and my siblings. And her parents were telling her to remember these ornaments, to sit there with a drink, with a nice tipple. They liked their alcohol, they liked their drink. They said, get a nice drink and sit in front of these ornaments and just remember us through the ornaments. So as the holiday season approaches, a lot of us who've lost relatives, it's a tough season because it's a very sentimental time. We gather with family, and sometimes there are people that are not there that were there last year. So it can be a tough season of poignancy.
For sure. Yeah, I think you're probably pre-warning me. But what's interesting is the ornaments is the only thing that the siblings didn't fight over.
Mm.
When the parents are in the other realms, right, and they're gone, and everybody's fighting over this stuff, and the ornaments is the only thing that they didn't fight over. How do the parents feel about that? How do they feel about that?
They tend to, I think from their side, they don't feel anger or frustration, although they will express it through what they had in the physical, if that makes sense. If they just come across as ethereal and full of love, it doesn't always pass on the message. But they do express frustration in the sense that they want the living to let go of their attachment or resistance. So I don't think they feel it in the other side. In fact, when I connect with them, it just feels like loving. They laugh about a lot of things that we don't laugh about, but they do express frustration to teach us to be more loving and to let go. They have the bigger picture. They can see the whole picture. They have all eyes. They know what's going on, But there is some frustration that is expressed because they want us to let go. And in that case, she was almost in tears when she said that was the only thing we didn't fight over, was the Christmas ornaments.
David, based on your understanding and your own experience and through the work that you've done, um, bridging between the different worlds, when somebody leaves their body, like what's their consciousness? Is it based on what you did in this life, like your self exploration, knowing yourself? Like, what is your understanding of that?
When they make the transition, I've been shown the feeling. It's kind of like you were in a balloon and suddenly the balloon's skin dissolves and you're everywhere. They've shown me this feeling of just almost like expanding to infinity because you are everywhere. But I've been shown this feeling several times. There is a life review, and each of us have a lesson or theme that we explore. It could be freedom, it could be unconditional love, and we can learn what that theme is before our transition by what our greatest challenges have been in this lifetime. Those are our themes, if they repeat themselves, especially. But there is a life review which goes over, and you're asked, why did you make that decision? There's no judgment of what you did, but you are asked, when you were confronted with that, why did you make that decision? What could you have done instead? They are shown other alternative routes that would have happened in their life had they gone a different path. But there's no judgment. I've heard that from some mediums. They say, oh, there's criticism, etc. Da, da, da. But you do enter the fourth dimension at the level of energy you had at your transition. So if you were in a very negative space, that's what you will have to continue exploring from that dimension. So the higher you are energetically in the third, you will continue that exploration in the fourth. And we never stop expanding. So in the fourth dimension, we continue our growth. We don't just rest on our laurels. We're continually learning new themes and experiences, but they are everywhere. And a lot of my clients I work with, they'll say, well, can you tell them this? And like, they hear your thoughts. You don't need me to connect with them. Just speak it through your heart space or out loud or however you feel comfortable, but you don't need a medium to pass those messages on. Sometimes they're important to get them to you, but you don't need a medium to pass them on to your loved ones. They feel everything you feel. Yeah, they feel everything you feel.
It's a beautiful thing to be able to communicate, isn't it?
It is, and I would say my biggest regret is that I can't share it with the person I'm working with because I can see images. For example, there was a woman I worked with who had a grandmother from southern Italy, Taormina to be exact, and I was describing the scene of her childhood, like this market space, and it was a sepia colored image. And she said, "Hold on a second," and she left the room. And I never know what that means. Maybe she's going to call her husband and I'll get bawled out for being a fraud. I don't know. But she comes back and she's holding an image, a picture, a framed picture that I was just describing. It was a framed picture of her childhood from when she was in Italy. And I was describing it, but it was in another room. And again, at least she was able to see what I was seeing. But a lot of times, what I'm seeing, I feel bad because I wish I could push a button and I could share like a screen share with them and they could see exactly what I'm being shown. I have to describe it, but I wish that at some point we'll be able to screen share in that regard.
Definitely, like,
Yeah.
we'll be able to put, because I'm like you, I get my information narrated in a story like a film. They're coming for you,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, everybody's a bit different in terms of it could be a video, it could be still images. I tend to get a jumble. I can see words, I can taste things. I had a client who was Irish, and I said to her, I'm seeing a green car on a green hill in front of a white house. And she said, well, we never had a green car. And I said to her, was the picture black and white? And she said, yes. And I said, well, that's what the color of the car was. And she never knew because the picture was a very famous picture from her family. But I said, yeah, that car was green, but it was a black and white picture. She never knew what the color of the car was, but I could see the color and she couldn't. But yeah, it's astonishing. The same grandmother, I tasted cream and I said, did she like to bake? And she said, was it cream cakes? And that was her favorite thing to bake. So you taste it, you can smell it. Yeah, you can see it, feel it. It's the hardest thing is when people show their transition because you can feel how they made their transition. Especially if it was like an accident or suicide or something tragic. It's very difficult, but you feel how they made the transition.
Yeah, so I did quite a lot of mediumship training just to expand my own awareness and to know like the unlimitedness of us all. And I found it very emotional. And
It's
also
very emotional.
it's very emotional, and the physical body also needs time to recalibrate after all that type of work, right?
Yeah, I don't recommend people doing mediumship full time. I think it's something that you can mix with other intuitive abilities because you are working with people that perhaps have lost a child or lost a sibling or a parent in a very tragic circumstances, and you're helping them with that, but you feel everything. You feel everything, and it is very heavy work. It's very sacred work as well, and there's a lot of responsibility because you are connecting with someone you've never met before, and immediately you can feel, oh, this person has lost a child, and I don't have children, but I can feel the tremendous grief, and you just hope that you can share information that will soothe it to a more manageable place. It's not about getting rid of grief, it's about soothing it and eventually alchemizing it into love. But the grief, I don't believe will ever go away. I think if you try to, that makes it harder to manage. I think you have to kind of flow with it, and everybody has a different process. Some people, it could be a few months, it could be a few years. Some people never get over it, but each person has to honor their own path. You have to honor their path. And here's someone, if you know anyone who is going through grief, let them have their own path. Let them have their own journey. Don't tell them it's been 3 years, you have to move on. Let them do their own process. You don't know what they have to learn.
Yeah, that's very good advice because I have a friend of mine, I love her dearly, and her husband passed away. And for some reason, I was very connected to him, although I didn't know him very well. But I felt,
Mm.
I had an empath, I could feel all of it. And whenever I see her, I'm just like, how much do you miss him? Do you still miss him the same? And she says, exactly the same. And I said, it's always going to be like that.
Yeah,
It's never going to stop, and she has kind of created a life, and she has a beautiful life, but it's right there. It never shifted. And I met his brother recently, and the moment I saw his brother, I started crying because they look alike. And she said, "It's so nice to see you because you're so real, Biba." And what she meant was, it's okay to be myself around you. It's okay to
that's a
say I miss.
fantastic ability to have. Yeah,
Yeah, because it could be years ago he passed away, but for me, it's in this now moment. Because for me, my understanding, David, and I want to talk to you about this, is it's all now. It's not. It
it's
wasn't.
all it's all now. We have time as a marker for experience in the third dimension. So we move through our physical life, and we're young, we're middle aged, we're older, but time is a marker to show us the creative process from a different way. Because in the fourth dimension, if you want to hold an apple, there's an apple. If you want to be in Tahiti, you're in Tahiti. Whereas in the third dimension, we do have to travel and move, and there is time, but it's slowing it down to show us the creative process from a different point of view and a different angle. But as we wake up in the dream, it's becoming faster. So a lot of us are waking up now that I'm not asleep in this experience. I'm actually awake. I'm lucid dreaming. I can make decisions more lucidly and more clearly, and things are happening more from a one first cause rather than things outside of us being more powerful. We are all the power. There's no secondary cause. That's kind of the biggest thing about separation, is that we believe the past is more powerful, or a bill is more powerful, or a relationship that we're struggling with is more powerful. Actually, we hold all the power. And I like the word authenticity versus power, because power can feel a little bit like trying to control things. But authenticity is wholeness. And I like that it's more about authenticity. We're becoming our more authentic self, feeling, and the intuitive abilities that we're opening up are allowing us to be more authentic and feel our authenticity. It's a natural human ability to be telepathic with animals and nature. It's a natural ability. We still think it's woo woo, but actually, it's a natural ability.
Yeah, there's nothing unusual about it. Like I've, like you,
No,
since I was a child, I've connected to anything that's got consciousness. I'm able to communicate with it, and then it be trying to articulate that is the tricky part. And when you were younger and the intuition was there, and then the tsunami hit, and you survived that through your intuition,
Mm.
and you became activated more so in your natural abilities. When you work with people now, and you work from the heart space and you're trying to assist them to activate their own intuition and just to believe in themselves, how do you um when you're with somebody, David, and you're working with somebody, how do you really impart the raw elements of what you're trying to convey? Because it's a little, are you in a war?
I think one of the toughest things that we have to forget in the human experience, what we have to forget is that we are not infinite. We believe we are finite and we are not. We exist in what appears to be a finite human body, but actually we are infinite. And what I was never told during my mediumship practice was we are already privy to all information. Everybody is. Within the universe, there's a speck of dust. And within the speck of dust is the entire universe. It's holographic. So nobody is ever actually apart from anything. So if you want to connect with a loved one, and it's easy for people to connect with loved ones that we knew in physical because the love connection, mediums are more rare because we're like a switchboard operator. We can connect people with, I've been in supermarket checkout lines and I've had messages coming through and I'm like, look, this woman that will think I'm crazy if I give her the message, come to her in a dream and the spirit leaves me alone. But it doesn't happen that often. It happened a lot at the beginning when I was doing the mediumship. But yeah, random messages would come through and it's like, look, I don't know this person. I can't just walk up to them and say, hey, your mom wants you to change your job. You're gonna have to come to them in a dream or something. But spirit has a sense of humor and they just kind of tap you on the shoulder like, hey buddy, can you just give that message to someone? And I have given a few. I was in line in a coffee shop once and I turned to a woman next to me and I just said, did your grandmother like to bake with you in the Philippines? And she said she did. I'm like, your grandmother wants you to be more confident in your bakery business. And she looked at me like, I have a bakery business and I'm still wondering what to do. I'm like, your grandmother's baking with you. And she kind of wide eyed and was like, she received the message, with appreciation. Others, not so much. And I can sense who will work and who will not. But those who don't, I will say, come to them in a dream.
So really what you're saying is when you're working with someone, if your heart can connect with their heart, the information will go in because it can't be mind to mind. This is heart
No,
language.
no, it's not mental at all. It's heart to
Yeah.
heart. Heart space is a portal to infinity. It's an infinite portal. The mind is limited. The mind is trapped in past, present, and future, right and wrong, good and bad, black and white. But from Source's perspective, the heart space, there's no right or wrong. That's hard for people to accept, that all experience is just experience. We give the meaning of it based on our conditioning and cultural backgrounds. Every cultures have different meanings. I mean, in India, in the south of India, eating beef is not a problem. But in the north, cows are sacred. They're not killed, they're revered. So in the same country, there are completely different moral codes that dictate human behavior. So, we all have different conditionings about what is right and wrong. But from Source's perspective, everything is experience, everything is expansion.
Right. So let's take it off world for a moment, okay? Everything is about expansion. So you've got, before we pressed record, you said, Biba, we're in the tumultuous time and it's about choices.
Yes.
Go in. This is exactly where I'm at as well. It's about
Mm,
choices. And that's your superpower. That's your authenticity. That's your sovereignty is in your choices. But you need
yes.
to know what they are. You need to know you have to.
Exactly. And for a long time, humanity has been so conditioned by religion and culture and family lines that we have been kind of in a straitjacket of just following the party line, so to speak. And now that we are dissolving the veil, the energies of the planet are shifting. We are realizing that there are infinite versions of us that exist simultaneously. And chaos is a great example of change. I mean, in the tsunami, that was an example I went through. There was tremendous chaos. I mean, chaos on a scale that I've never experienced, and a spectrum of human reaction from complete catatonic state. I saw people go catatonic, and then on the other spectrum, people went completely insane. They were screaming, yelling, they lost their minds. So I saw the entire spectrum of response to a disaster and chaos. And right now we're having the same thing. This chaos is forcing us to choose. And when we are making choices more deliberately, we see the results more clearly. But before, we were oftentimes making decisions more like, well, my parents did this, or I'm not allowed to do that. But as the veil dissolves, we start to look around and say, I can be whoever I want to be, and I am supported by Source in any direction I choose to turn. And that's kind of what's happening now on planet Earth. But it's a wonderful time to be here. We are really called by Spirit to stop getting so hypnotized by what we see outside of us. Because again, first cause is our heart space. And if we are continually hypnotized by the news or people around us, we will continue to live in secondary cause and separation. But the number one lesson of Earth is to deny separation. Deny separation. That's the number one lesson of the Earth experience, and to have fun as well. The fun of it is saying, I used to believe I was separate, and now I know that I'm not, and I can laugh off those experiences where I behaved in ways where I criticized people, thinking that they were separate. But if you criticize them, you're criticizing yourself. If you're judging them, you're judging yourself. And when you start to love and cherish others because there is no other, it's only you lift humanity up. The entire planet lifts. And animals now are becoming more conscious too. And more humans are communicating with animals because they are equal to us. And here's one more thing that will hopefully be helpful to listeners if they do want to open intuition is everything is equal. For example, if you want to communicate with a loved one in spirit, if you're in grief and they're up here, you can't connect. You've got to return to the equality. And this is how we receive messages from animals or plants or crystals or Arcturians, for example, is to feel the equality because nothing is above or below. In the third dimension, we have an economic system that is constantly reinforcing up and down, separation, lack. But at the heart space, there is no lack, no separation. So the equality is the thing that I teach people that want to open their intuition about. Remember that when you ask that question, since you're infinite, you already have the answer. You have just temporarily forgotten. And when you get the answer from source, from spirit, you're being reminded and you're remembering who you are. So when I ask questions as a medium or an intuitive, I never ask from lack. I always say, I know this information. I've temporarily forgotten it, even if it's something for a client, a mother in spirit, or a pet or something. And you're reminding me of this. And I'm always lovingly given the answer because
You
I
know,
ask from that equality.
this is really this is like one of the main hidden wisdoms of our whole civilization, because the hierarchical system is a false light matrix, I call it.
Exactly.
And you have a different terminology to me, but it's the same thing. I like your terminology. It's more heart centered and less judgmental. But it's this hierarchy, and there is no hierarchy. And equality, being equal to that. So when you're communicating with interdimensional beings or extraterrestrial beings or your cat, you are on a par with that. You're on a level with that. It's not like I have to go, I'm so grateful and I'm so honored, like this kind of worship mode, right?
That's exactly correct. And that's what's collapsing now. People are realizing. I had a conversation yesterday. You'll laugh about this. I was in a bar and I ordered a tiramisu and a coffee downstairs, and I went upstairs
I
to
like your
sit
style.
and wait for it. And the waiter delivered it to the wrong table. And the woman at the table exclaimed, I was just thinking about tiramisu and a coffee, and here it is. And she was just absolutely excited. And I told the waiter, it was for her because I'm a medium. These things happen this way. This is what's supposed to happen. So the waiter was a bit confused. He left the tiramisu with her and the coffee with her, and I got mine later. But we had a wonderful conversation about spirituality. It turns out she had just come back from an Ayurvedic retreat in Italy. She's from Turkey. But the look on her face, Biba, when she was like, I was just thinking about tiramisu and a coffee, and here it is, the look on her like a child at Christmas, and it was just this wonderful moment of her being reconfirmed and remembering the power of our intuition. But it was so funny because the waiter had no idea what was going on. He was completely confused. But I knew that her guides were just showing her that this is possible, that we can think of something and it happens. And she got her
Beautiful.
tiramisu, and so did I.
And also, you got to communicate with her about things.
We talked for about an hour about kind of the moving beyond the current role of spirituality and more knowing that we all have the answers. We don't need to have gurus on pedestals. We don't need to follow these people who are telling us all these things that we don't know. We are all equally teachers and students. And I think that's what she was really referring to. She had a wonderful retreat, but she said, I know now that all the answers are within me. And we had the conversation about equality. I was reminding her that when she asks a question, she already knows the answer, but she's temporarily forgotten it, and now she's being reminded. And invite, it could be a loved one in spirit, it could be a pet, it could be an Arcturian, it could be Mother Mary, it could be Yeshua. They can come in and be the one that shares it with you. But remember, they're all within you because they are you. There's no separation. You don't
This is
call them in, you express them.
This is, yeah, exactly. You express them. So even with the mediumship, if I was doing a reading for somebody, not that I do readings, but I do, like, as I was practicing, I was trained to embody their essence and talk as them, not evidential
Mm.
mediumship, but actually kind of like you become, or you can feel the blending of the energies, and then you just
Yeah.
express what you said
It's
that you're passing.
it's almost like you're opening a pot, like those pot-bellied stoves, and you're opening the door and you're realizing that they're already within you because all the frequencies are accessed at the heart level. And I've had it where I've done a call with a client, and at the end they said, you were mimicking their facial features and their body movements, and I had no idea what I was doing. But they were like completely gobsmacked that they were like, you had the, and I didn't even know I was doing it, but I was actually touching my face the way they did. I was, moving my eyes, etc. And they were just like, you were channeling them, and I had no idea. But like you said,
Yeah.
when you're a medium, you do feel that.
But the thing that's important about that is when we're communicating with one another, we're because we're so trained in the mind in
Yes,
this world. It's mind games actually, and it's mind training, and
it
it's all
is
about your achievements is because of your mind. But actually, when you do a reading for somebody that you embody that person that they're looking to connect with, it bypasses their mind completely. You're hitting right into the stargate of their heart. It's like
completely.
instant access. And when I was young, Yeshua showed up when I was very, very young, and he was always there, and we were always traveling and going places. And he was never like anything other than a friend. So he trained me for maybe 2 decades to always be on a level, to never. He taught me how to embody because he helped me understand that me and him are one, and also that when you meet these ETs and all of that, like they're not higher. There's no such thing as higher.
Nope. No,
You know, there's
that's
no
that's
higher.
the lesson of Earth. The paradox of the Earth experience is that we are in an illusion that gives us the experience of hierarchy and separation, but we're here to transcend that, and to once we realize that extraterrestrials are just us in a different body, we will see other humans as the same, or an animal, or a dog, or whatever. This morning, I was at a cafe where I don't normally go to, and there was a woman from the UK there with a little puppy dog, 4 months old. And I said to her, I just somehow got talking to her, and she just said, "I have a dog. I have my dog passed away." And I said to her, "I work as an animal communicator, and I can see the lineage. You have people in spirit too who helped you with this dog." Her eyes were a bit wide, but it was more of a confirmation. She wasn't being told something that she didn't feel. She knew that that was the case. And in fact, a lot of people nowadays, it's more confirmation when they have a medium session. A lot of what's coming through is confirming what they already know. They're not being told outlandish things. They're
Right.
so intuitive now that a lot of it is actually confirmation. Like
It's brilliant.
they had an
Continue.
experience at night, and I was like, yeah, that was your father, and he was just coming to say hi. And they knew that it was their dad, and it wasn't something out of the blue.
Confirmation is the soothing balm we're looking for.
Yes.
Actually, we're not looking for revelations. Some of us are. It's actually, we're
Yes.
looking, when someone says this and that, and you're like, I knew it. You're like, yeah, you're on the right track. Just keep going.
Exactly. And again, the sessions are there to confirm and enhance the client's own intuition. It's not just there to push a vending machine and get information. It's actually to open their own intuition. I always encourage them to open their heart space, and I give them tips and tricks about how to open their own intuition. I do not like the medium sessions where the medium sits there like a guru and like they're pumped for information, and then the call ends. Like, no. This is about opening your intuition. And I don't focus too much on the evidential side, like they like to drink tea out of this cup or a china pattern, whatever. It's more about what do they want you to know now in your life? What are they wanting to share with you? Do they want to encourage you to look for a new job? Do they want you to encourage you to start that hobby or that business or shift that relationship? A lot of times I have parents with conflicts with their children, and their parents are coming through and they're saying, look, you were difficult too as a child. Don't forget that. You were not the easiest child to raise either. So don't think that you were an angel growing up. But a lot of times I really make sure that the people in spirit are passing on concrete and just very solid tips on how to live their life now and how to shift their own perspective. It isn't just sitting there and saying, when you were 5, I see you wearing a red dress at Christmas. Great, that's fine. That's more psychic. But what I want is information where the loved ones in spirit can say, we're with you all the way and we're giving you new encouragements how to live your life now.
Yeah, and also sometimes, the red dress at Christmas with the green bow, that can click the mind into safety. You see, sometimes a bit of evidence and then they go, "Oh, he's not a total quack." You know, and then you can
Yeah.
go,
And actually, when you're opening your own intuition, my mediumship was actually the anchor for me because I was doing a class where I was practicing. And when I was able to say something that just came out of the blue and it was confirmed by the person I was working with, you start to trust your intuition. But had the channeling started first or had the animal communication began first, I would have thought belonged in a straitjacket or a white van. It would have been, I need to call a white van. But the evidential confirmation gives you the solid foundation to say, okay, I'm trusting what's coming through. The most bizarre things come through sometimes, and you have to share what you see and feel and touch and know. One time I had a client where this woman was very diminutive and very calm and very, very quiet. And I saw a blue uniform, like a New York cop. And it turns out she was a cop. And she used to buy drugs, cocaine, in the 1980s in Miami. She didn't fit the profile of a police officer, so that's why she was undercover. But again, had I not known to share what I see, I perhaps wouldn't have said to her, "I'm seeing you wearing a blue uniform with a cop, like a badge." And she said, "Yeah, I was an undercover cop in the '80s in Miami, buying cocaine, actually with cash on the barrel." And I would never have imagined her to be that, but she's working on a book apparently about her
That's just
experiences.
that's just brilliant. And also, sorry, David, because a lot of people now are interested in channeling, right? This whole idea of channeling, and you don't use the word channeling. I'm the same. I don't think it's channeling. You're just tuning in to a certain frequency, right?
You're shifting back. When I'm channeling, I don't do it very often, but when I do it, I'm kind of almost like when you're in a car and you tilt your seat back in the driver's seat or passenger seat and you're going to take a nap. You kind of tilt back. Your physical body's still there, but you're not there. And I can feel it coming down through my crown chakra like a bolt of lightning. And I have
Really,
to just let go, let go, let go. My eyes close and then the energy flows through. But what I was getting through earlier is that we are all channeling a personality. We are consciousness channeling a personality, and we are channeling all the time. So any of these people that are bragging about channeling, it's like everybody is channeling a personality. Everybody's channeling people. So don't make such a big deal about it. I like to pop bubbles. I like to pop bubbles where I see them because I'm a channeler. It's like, well, everybody is. Don't
yeah,
need to make that into a
this
bigger
is
thing.
great because you're demystifying something that's organic.
Oh yeah. The spiritual community, I think, does have to have kind of a reckoning soon where we drop the woo woo stuff and just realize we are translating energy in a different way. That's simply what we're doing. We're learning to translate energy in a whole new way that we have done before. It's nothing new. We just have been so conditioned out of it that it feels new. But in that newness, we are coming at it from a new perspective and learning a lot about it. But yeah, the spiritual industry has a lot to answer for. And I think that
Wow.
we're going to see a lot of these gurus being kicked off their pedestals. I'm not going to name names, but I'm kind of sensing a few of them. I'm like, your days may be numbered as that pedestal's getting a bit rocky.
Yeah, because the fact is, if somebody comes to you for assistance, you're going to assist them, but you're also going to enable them to assist themselves, right? So you're empowering them into their sovereignty. But if
It's not
I
about just
go
pumping them for information, it's empowering them.
exactly, so but that's the difference between somebody who's living from their heart, which is the new world, right, so to speak, or somebody who's like in an industry. Because if I want
Mm.
to monetize my spiritual gifts that I
You're
got
going to
from,
make it seem behind a veil.
you can lash on any title you want, saying I was visited by a spaceship and they put a rod into my head and I got a download and now I'm channeling the eighth council of the 19th, and they're called, and then people are so mesmerized by the fantastical story, and then I'm just
Yeah.
tuning into my intuition and then, but actually if you just cut all that out and say, well, I did have contact, and but here's how I work. It's like we are in the transitionary period of real contact with ourselves, our greater
Yes.
being, and also the greater beings of all the other entities in this universe outside of this dimension. And it's all kind of, radio frequencies are beginning to harmonize so we can kind of communicate more freely without the interference of this kind of control. And we need real, authentic people like you who are just calling it out as it is.
And popping bubbles where we see them, because I just feel that we are all energy and since there's no separation, we're learning to translate energy in a new way, and it's exciting. And I talk a lot about my work, even people who are skeptics, because I'm telling them, look, you're already doing this. You just labeled it in a different way. You think it's you, but actually it's the greater you that's communicating through you. There are some people who are very intuitive who don't even know what the word intuition means, or a channeler or a medium, but they're very intuitive. They just don't call it that. So a lot of people that are, you know, screaming about I'm an intuitive are not that intuitive. You got to be more, just call a spade a spade. And again, equality is the key. We are all equals. We are all equally teachers and students. And if anyone has a session with you and they have the robes and they have the crystals and they've got that kind of, you can address me by Baba, whatever, I would run.
You're
I
wrong.
would run,
That's no
especially now.
paradigm. That's a
Yeah,
paradigm that's over.
yeah, it's
That,
it's a
that's
different clothing. It's the
yeah,
same BS in a different clothing. It's the same
yeah. It's
BS but
just
a different
it's
form.
it's a confession box, and it's like you're giving your power away. Come on, stop. Get off your
Yeah.
knees. Get off your knees.
Again, secondary causes. If we believe that things outside of us have caused us harm, we believe that things outside of us can do us good. And actually, if we can just express what's within us, you hear a lot of spiritual people saying, I called in the angels. Well, the angels are within you. You're actually calling them out, you're expressing them. It could be Archangel Michael, it could be Mother Mary. And I don't see them in a religious sense. I see them as ascended masters who have mastered the earth polarity and come back to the center. One of my sort of like themes that are coming up is the triangle, the pyramid shape. A lot of people think of them as tombs, like the Giza pyramids, but they represent the dark and the light and the neutral, the masculine, the feminine, and the center. And that's the most perfect shape in the universe. The Merkaba is a counter rotating tetrahedron. You have the masculine and feminine that are counter rotating in opposite directions, and again, that shape, that tetrahedron, is the seed of the tree of life. It is the most basic form in the universe. And simplicity, again, equality, is where we have to return to blossom. We can't fix the blossoms of the flower. It's too complex. We don't know the answer to all that. But we do have the simplicity in our heart space where the flower can then bloom in the way it wants to. But we're trying to fix the flower. We're trying to fix the leaves, but we're effing around with something we don't have the expertise with. The simplicity is our heart space where everything blooms out of.
Very good. And also, I noticed, David, like with the way that we're I call it multidimensional, right? Which is what we are. It's not one dimension; it's multidimensional, which means your fractals are on all the dimensions. And when I was younger, I would meditate and I would go to places and have these, I mean, proper epic scenarios, right? And I noticed when I began to step into my own authenticity and my own power, these kind of epic interactions and visitations and locations ceased. It's like something in me didn't, it's like the truest form of myself stepped forward and I could no longer be distracted by the cosmic candy. Do you understand what I mean?
I understand exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to talk to you because you are in touch with the Arcturians. Like they visited you and you've met them. What was it like meeting a blue being?
It was a normal day, and I was sitting on my sofa like I am now, and suddenly I could sense about 8 blue beings about eye level. They were just like, blue beings with big eyes, and they just said, go into meditation. And I did, and they said, look, we're one of you, you're one of us, we're family. It was quite bizarre. I had an accelerated path up until then, so it was kind of like, okay, now what? Now what? I wasn't talking to animals so much then. That came after the Kundalini awakening that happened about 2 years ago, but this was about 4 years ago. And we went into meditation. They gave me a crystal around my neck. And it's funny because I listened to a QEEG, I think it's called, no, QH regression session with, Dolores Cannon does that. One of her proteges was doing it. And somebody went into regression and talked about being Arcturian and wearing one of these crystals. So I listened to that podcast after I had this experience, but they showed me the home planet. They showed me the crystal healing chambers, the pyramid shaped triangles, the healing modalities. But most of all, they showed me, I can't do it because I'm holding a phone, but I had the 2 hands held together in the shape of a pyramid, demonstrating what I just said about the masculine, the feminine, and the neutral, the dark, the light, and the center. That's where our power is. That stability and that authenticity and that equality. We're not living in polarity, trying to get back to the center. We live out of the center. We explore polarity, but from the center. So the other experience I had with the Arcturians, one of them anyway, was okay. I was at Lake Como. It was a Sunday, and it was a very warm day in February, about a month after I had my first encounter with the Arcturians. Very warm day, almost 20 degrees Celsius, very unusually warm. And I was walking by the lake, and I look up in the sky, and there's a massive ship above the lake. I could see it sort of like, fourth dimensionally. Of course, it wasn't there. It was there, but it wasn't there. And as I walked towards it, the ship began talking to me, and it was saying that we're here for, what is that, Davos conference. It was the Davos conference. Maybe it was January, but it was the Davos conference in Switzerland, and the ship was going back to Arcturus or whatever. But the ship was actually communicating with me as if it were a human. It was not an Arcturian. There were Arcturians on board the ship, but the ship itself was alive, and it was just. I came back. There was a sunset that was purple. Purple is the color of Pitola, the planet of Arcturus, and the sunset was purple. People were taking pictures everywhere. It was unbelievable. This purple sunset. Never seen it before or since. But yeah, since then I have had encounters with Arcturians here and there. I do go into channeling sessions with them. They do give me advice, and I've had people ask me questions just to confirm what's going on because it can be a little weird.
Yeah.
But again, this has happened after the mediumship that confirmed the details. When I was getting confirmation from people that I was working with, I had the confidence to say, okay, what's happening now? I can trust it. If the channeling had begun first, I probably would have just shut it down. And I don't think I would have continued.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think the soul knows what it's doing. It's got its stepping stones.
Your soul knows what it needs to experience so that you will not run screaming into the woods, basically.
So now that you've had, I'm sure you've had a lot of contact, but this particular one that you remembered, how do you feel it has influenced or impacted your life in any way?
The biggest impact is that we are multidimensional beings, that everything is us in a different body because it is all one thing. So the Arcturians are not separate from us, they are simply us in a different body. And they're curious about Earth because they have been through the ascension process before that we're going through now. And they're curious about how we make decisions as a species and as a planet. You know, the entire Earth is an ecosystem. Humans are not dropped here. We are the neurons of the planet, and we are here to work. All animals on Earth are humans too. They're not separate from us. So we're all here learning compassion. And again, compassion comes from that center, the divine masculine, feminine, and the neutral. When we have compassion, we don't judge. And we live in a environment where judgment is very easy to express, but we're here to learn to not judge through compassion for ourselves and ultimately others, but for all.
Okay, so let me just share this and then you can tell me how to move with compassion, because if I'm in an environment where my water and my air and my food and the airwaves is all being manipulated and controlled. Okay. So, you've got chemtrails all day, every day. I've got a blanket of cloud out there that's not real. I have to filter my water. I have to eat organic food and hope it's organic. I have to be very careful that my thoughts are my own. I've learned how to differentiate what's mine and what's mine. So when there's an influence around me, I know it's very compacted, and the compression of suppression, right? That's very frustrating. I just want clean water and clean air.
Mm.
Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, where do we start with that?
I think that it goes back to the secondary cause versus primary cause. Again, we have to remember that we are the primary cause of our experience, but we have been manipulated through this dimensional reality and also the powers on the planet to believe that there are external things. We are to fear the water, we are to fear a war coming to our country, or we are to fear financial collapse of the economic system. But our heart space is the most powerful beam going out. And what will transform the planet, Biba, is when all of us just say, enough of being hypnotized by the outside. Let's open our inner eyes, our heart space. And what do I see in there? I see a world with clean water. I see a world where we view each other as equal. I see a world where dog parents and cat parents treat them as equals and don't yank them on their leash or tell them what to do. You know, I see that all the time and I get very angry when I see a pet parent treating the dog like it's a lesser being. And the poor dog is an ascended master and is being, yanked and shouted at. And don't get me started because in Italian, coming across and telling someone, I'm an animal communicator, you shouldn't treat your dog that way because he's here to teach you this, this, and this, they would tell me to get lost if I did that. I have to hold my tongue. But my point is, it's opening the heart space almost as though, again, we're opening up a pot-bellied stove, because the love going out will be so powerful that these secondary causes will no longer be given any weight. It's when we give weight to the secondary causes that they continue to control us. But don't forget, we are being told that the water is unsafe. It might be, but if you drink it with the intention that it's not, you will only take what is good of the water. Same with the food. You know, in some countries, when people eat food, they say, I shouldn't eat this because it'll make me sick. And then they get sick. In Italy, where I live, people eat pasta every day and they don't get fat. They drink wine for lunch. They eat all kinds of foods that other countries would say, oh, are dangerous. Carbohydrates, too many carbs, too much this, too much that. They do not get overweight because they don't think that. They don't see the food as a secondary cause that is going to harm them. So the heart space does not feel that there are any secondary causes because there aren't. The physical mind is just
That's right.
hypnotized by
That's
secondary causes. The past is controlling us. The future is to be feared. The heart lives in presence. And that's where the matrix truly collapses. When enough of us on the planet will live out of our heart space and no longer allow the secondary causes to have any power. We're being told that the illusion is real, but an illusion is not something that's fake. It just isn't what it seems. It's actually being beamed out of our heart space. The entire experience is actually imagination coming out of our heart space. Whether you are imagining now or experiencing now or dreaming, it's all imagination. Everything is being imaged. Everything's being imaged through your consciousness. But the biggest thing is just collapsing that secondary cause.
So when I'm on my balcony and it's a beautiful sunny day and I love the being of the sun and the being of the earth, I speak to part of my team. And it's like, and then I see the airplanes and I think, in 1 hour it's going to be blanket, it's going to be hidden. And it's like the yanking of the chain. It riles me. It's like, it's like,
It feels disempowering.
It's just, it's not disempowering because I wouldn't give my power to something outside of myself. However, it's frustrating and it's like, when is this going to stop? And then I say, don't go there. Don't entertain this.
There's one thing that I received from Yeshua many years ago was, if you don't embody it everywhere, it will never be in your experience. And if you want to embody a world where the aircraft are not using fossil fuels to travel, which means there are no chemtrails being emitted from them in any way, that they're traveling without, that kind of whatever, you have to embody it. You want to embody that universe and that world because it's only now. Even if you don't see it, you want to embody it like a favorite jacket or a favorite article of clothing. And it's also important not to try to change it as though it were wrong. Again, that equality. You can only shift between frequencies. You can't go from one frequency to a higher one and expect it to just, you have to shift the frequency first. And you got to say, I love looking at the sky, and all I see is beautiful, clean air. Even if you don't see it, you got to feel it now.
Yeah.
That's the collapse.
That's the collapse, exactly. And that's actually the fine tuning of our daily experience about what we're talking about.
It's also laughing at the fact that we used to be hypnotized by the secondary causes. To actually just laugh. Oh yeah, I used to believe the news media were right about that. Everything is trying to frighten me. Oh, they have no power over me. I barely watch the news because everything is tailored to frighten you. And again, secondary causes. You are the holder of your entire power. And again, that's authenticity. And that's only out of the heart space. The heart and the mind must be in coherence to allow that power and authenticity to be expressed. But if we're living in our mind, the heart is closed and the heart is more dormant. I call my website Infinite Human Heart because that's why I believe if we just lived out of our heart space, as simple as that sounds, we would solve a lot of what we consider to be problems, because the heart space is where all of our power and authenticity is, because we're whole there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we really, really help each other from the heart, not from the mind. And in your personal life, because this is a personal question, in your personal life, in your relationships, do you find relationships tricky?
They are if I stay in the mental space. If I stay in the mental space, I will continue to judge. But what I do now more often is I view them from the soul level, which is through the heart space. And I know that this is very important too. If I see someone behaving in a way that I don't prefer, I also have to tell myself, I can do the same thing. I have the ability to do the exact same thing. And that's where the judgment drops. Because if I believe myself to be separate and I think, well, they're behaving in a way that I would never do because I'm, again, holier than thou, which is BS, I have to remember that they are behaving in a way that I have the potential to behave as well. And that immediately dissolves the judgment. And that's when you're out of the heart space.
And that's very important. And it's a beautiful way to have relationships. But also, I also mean like as an intuitive, because you're able to perceive.
I think I only receive what I'm able to share to help them. I can't perceive things that are not, spirit doesn't share things with me that I'm not allowed to know. I only know things that they're willing to hear so that I can help them. I can't perceive things that I'm not allowed to know. That's kind of what I have with spirit. Yeah, that's kind
This
of
is
how it
okay.
works.
So, but say if you're having a conversation with somebody and you know where they're coming from
Mm.
because you're an intuitive, you're so I have a conversation with somebody and I'll know what they're going to say. I know why they're going to say it. And I'm just thinking, can we just not do this? It's just,
Yeah, it can be a little tricky with that because I know you can hear what they're going to say before they say it, and I think what I'm prompted to is to how can I respond to them in a way that they will listen to someone who's just guiding them to go easier on themselves because that's actually what it is. It's all about lightening up. And remember, I'm being shown something that I have to learn as well. I'm the teacher and the student. So if I'm experiencing it, it's also being mirrored to me like maybe you can go a little lighter on yourself too. It's always an equal exchange. Again, that equality. It's never, I'm the teacher and you're going to listen to me and you're beneath me. Oh no. And when I'm working with clients too, I'm learning just as much as they are. The messages that are coming through are just for, as much for me as for them.
yeah, because I've done QHHT for years and I realized after 2 or 3 years that actually I've gotten to know myself through my work.
Yes,
Like they got what they needed, but I got so much more. I got to know how my spirit roams and how it gathers information and how it decodes and how I learned about myself through my work.
100%. 100%. I agree with you 100%. If your ears are open and your eyes are open, you will realize that what's coming through is just as much for you as for them.
Yeah, it's equal. It's the same, isn't
Again,
it?
it's equal. That's again, I think equality is the key to communication with any aspect of the universe, with ourselves. But we believe ourselves to be less than or unworthy, or we've made a mistake that we don't deserve it, and that blocks it all. So, equality is truly the synthesizing kind of return to who we truly are, where we can actually receive that. And again, when I communicate with an animal, sometimes I'm having an off day or I'll communicate with an animal on the fly and I'm forgetting to ask them at an equal level. And the information doesn't flow as quickly. But once I say to them, we're equals, I'm here to help you, da da da, work with your human, the information flows. I hear stuff, I see stuff. But I'm reminded you got to ask at the equal level.
Well, my cat's an ascended master, so I do worship it. That's the only
They
creature in the universe I worship.
are ascended masters. Cats are ascended masters in fur coats. So are dogs. So are dogs. They have
Yeah,
nice fur coats too. Yeah, they
yeah.
have nice fur
They're
coats.
so evolved. How they
And
put up with us, I do not know.
they're extremely compassionate and dogs and cats have very different personalities, but their inspiration is quite similar. They're here just to mirror back to us to lighten up. Like this morning, this woman I ran into with this little dog, 4-month-old puppy, I told her there are 10 dogs packed into this little puppy. The dog weighed about a kilo. And I said to her, he's teaching you how to regulate your own emotions. And she's like, exactly. When I'm getting up in the morning, if I'm stressed, he's stressed. And when I'm happy, he's happy. They're mirrors. And
That's
if we're more
horrible.
in tune to it, we can actually anticipate, okay, if I do this, you're going to show me that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually feel happy, and the dog or cat will show the happiness back. But they're
Yeah.
they're mirrors. They're wonderful mirrors.
Well, it's a universe of mirrors, I think. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about the Earth and what's happening and your understanding of where we are collectively, including the Earth within this universe.
I think it's a moment of tremendous optimism. That's kind of what I feel from spirit is kind of like they're waiting for the curtain to go up on a maestro performance. I think Earth is on the cusp of a very major shift in terms of awareness. And I believe that's coming with open contact with extraterrestrials because we will no longer identify as German, Israeli, Chinese, male, female, old, young. We'll say, actually, we're humanity and we are interviewing and meeting our relatives. And I think that's what's going to collapse the separation. At the moment, we're still viewing ourselves, as we talked about earlier, through our identities. I'm this gender, I'm this age, I'm this generation, or I'm from this country, or my mother was from here, or whatever. But I think that what I'm getting from Spirit is they're waiting for the curtain to go up where we finally realize stop seeing each other as wrong or different or bad or good and see each other as divine beings. But I'm just seeing a curtain going up very shortly in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And how do you think that's going to look?
I think it's going to be a huge shock to humanity when we do start to see ships in a more a longer term way. People now are seeing them kind of in blips. I've seen them here and there, but I think when they're actually here, and I think people like us who are intuitives are probably being groomed, so to speak, so that we can introduce humans to what they have to offer. They won't be telepathic with ETs at first, they will be eventually. But I think there are people on the planet now who are intuitives who are actually being groomed, so to speak, to be kind of that welcoming party or the translators between humanity and these Palladians or Arcturians or whoever it's going to be. But humanity will need to have interpreters who can kind of help move the heat and the cold into more of a tepid middle. So I think that's kind of what's happening now. There are a lot of people on the planet who are channeling, and I think they're going to be the ambassadors for the first wave. It feels like that to
First
me anyway.
wave. The
Yeah.
first wave implies a second wave.
The first wave of open contact, I mean, they have always been here. Our governments have been working with ETs for a long time, and it's nothing new. The planet's frequency has kept them at bay in some ways. When the frequency was higher, they were more here, like during the Egyptian period, they were among us, and then the energy dropped. But it's a natural cycle to have dark and light, dark and light. But we're now coming back to more light.
We are. It's a very exciting time, and I think what I would like to say on this myself is that don't think in lines of angels and demons and good and bad and nefarious and not nefarious. You must really learn your own discernment. Like inquire what discernment means, and when you study mediumship and when you do some self inquiry, you've got to learn discernment for what's. It teaches you discernment, and that's going to really be a wonderful tool to have when we have open contact, because instead of just always being afraid of everything, because the media has trained you, it's entrained you and groomed you to be in fear. That's what it's
Exactly.
for.
Separation.
Yeah. So when you see a craft, it could be a man-made craft from the government, or it could be an actual interdimensional ship of its own consciousness. Judge it. Take a moment to acknowledge its presence and connect to your heart. And if you don't like the feeling, just go back inside.
Yeah, go back to your heart space and then ask the question there and receive the answer from your heart. Don't let your physical mind give you the answer. That's kind of what this fear-based media ecosystem. People don't ask from their heart; they listen to it from their mind, and they make judgments based on that. But if you go into your heart space and you listen to it, you can see through the lies, and that's again the collapse. When enough people are able to perceive things through their heart space, they are able to collapse the lies. And we will no longer be lied to because we are no longer lying to ourselves. Our physical minds tend to lie to ourselves. And if we lie to ourselves, we are being lied to much more easily. But in the heart space, you can't lie to yourself and you can't be lied to. It's always a two-way street. So the heart space is kind of the silver bullet, so to speak, the golden key to opening up awareness where people go, you know what? I'm no longer believing in the news media. I'm no longer believing in the corporatized food system or the mortgage, 30-year mortgage, that whole system of enslavement, financial enslavement. People will no longer believe it. The younger generations now aren't buying houses like their parents did because they don't buy into it. They're just not buying into it, and for good reason.
Yeah, and for very good reason. And so, is there anything else you'd like to share or impart at this time in your own journey?
I think the number one word is trust. And if you learn to open your heart space, that is where the answers will come that you can trust. When you continue to live in your physical mind, it might be harder to trust things. And you do shift between your mind and your heart space. I do sometimes. I fall out of my heart space and get into the mind. But the number one thing I want to share with people is open your heart space, listen to what it's telling you. It will never criticize you, it will never say a statement as a no, it will always say a yes. Even if it's you need to shift jobs, it will say you don't want to stay here. It will say a new job would be a great opportunity. A new relationship would be a great opportunity. It will shift you in that direction. The heart space will always tell you the truth, but you've got to learn to listen. It takes a bit of time to get, like you said, discernment. You want to kind of get out of the mind a bit, but love living out of the heart space and live there more often. When you pet your cat Biba, you're in the heart space. When you walk your dog, when you laugh with a friend, you have those moments of when your heart is open. And I think that's what we want to kind of be more aware of and live more out of the heart.
Beautiful. And so if people want to communicate with you and contact you, how do they do that?
On Instagram, I'm David Patrick Medium, all one word, and my website is simply infinitehumanheart.com.
Wonderful. Well, I'll add that all to the information box. It's been so lovely speaking to you, and people may
Same to
want,
you.
but also like I contacted you recently for an animal, that was in a
Mm,
cage, and I wanted to know what did this animal have to say because I'm like infuriated about this animal in a cage, and I'm like, I need to contact David. It's like you're the only person in my reality I had to communicate with
yeah,
you. But
it was so funny that the animal had a Halloween costume because it was, I mean, Spirit has a sense of humor because that Halloween costume was exactly what the mother, the pet parent, has to learn. And she's dressing up this pet in a Halloween costume. That Spirit has a sense of humor because it has to learn, they have to learn to not cage themselves and again, uncage your heart, uncage your heart space. Don't let your heart space be enslaved by your physical mind. It can be a bit of a tricky shift out of the mind into the heart space, but once you do, you will trust a lot more and you'll feel more. And again, we no longer can be lied to. And when we're no longer lied to, the economic system on this planet will collapse and be reborn into a new system. It's the continuation of the lies that keep it alive, that people still buy into it. But once the heart space is open and they no longer will hurt themselves, then they will not participate and they'll make new systems. This is the time of awakening to create new systems. And the last thing I want to say is don't think you have to participate in the old systems, create new ones, new education, new learning systems, new healing systems, new systems of financial loans. This is the time of creating entirely new systems. It's exciting to dream in this way.
yeah, exactly. And one of the things I did a course with a lovely man, and I liked working with him because he had a very expanded consciousness. Like he was able to travel, like push the boundaries. Because I thought, well, I need to expand my imagination because I'm
That's everything.
so
Imagination.
cluttering. I'm like, I want to create a new reality, a new world, and new educations, like you said. But I feel like I'm in a box. I need to get out of the box of my
And that's
mind.
what the physical mind is, a box.
Yeah,
And
it
the heart
is.
space is an infinite void. It's a portal, it's an infinite void. The 0 point emerges from the heart space, not the physical mind. And again, you nailed it right there. Imagination is everything. I talked about it earlier. When you dream, as we're talking now, this is imagination. This is imagine everything's being imaged. And we're taught as children that imagination is fairy tales and artificial, but actually it is everything. Einstein said it perfectly. Knowledge, one thing, intuition will take you everywhere, and so will imagination. But knowledge is limited.
Thank you so much for popping on to the Biba
Thank you,
Frequency
Biba, for
podcast.
having me.
Until next time,
Until next time, have a great, wonderful week ahead of you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Biba.
No, no, no. So let me end this.